What's up, you guys? It's Mike here. So Apple has made the claim that the Face ID on the iPhone 11, iPhone 11 Pro, and iPhone 11 Pro Max is the fastest Face ID they've had yet. I mean, they've only had two versions of Face ID, one on the iPhone 10 and then this one on the iPhone 11s. So obviously that means that the Face ID on the iPhone 11s is faster than the iPhone 10s, at least in terms of what Apple is saying. So I figured it would be fun to put that claim to the test and time exactly how fast Face ID is on the iPhone 11 Pro Max here, and maybe compare it to an iPhone 10R and see if this is actually faster than the iPhone 10. So how do I plan on doing that? This is not going to be the most scientific comparison, but my strategy is to film in 120 frames per second on the A6500 here, get in a position on the floor, not right here, get in a position where you guys can actually see this turning on and unlocking a little bit better than we can right here. Filming in 120 frames per second and then counting the frames between the time the screen comes on and the time the unlock symbol up top here actually unlocks. So what I plan on doing is doing three trials of that, kind of getting an average between the three, maybe seeing if it's different in darker settings, and then comparing it to the iPhone 10R. So that being said, let's migrate somewhere else in the apartment so we can get a little bit better light and maybe a little bit better of an angle where you guys can actually see what's going on a little bit more. Okay, so we are in position. I've got the iPhone 11 Pro Max right here. What I'm gonna have to do is kind of like go up behind the camera a little bit and put this up in front of the camera where you guys can see it nice and closely, I think. So I'm gonna be out of frame just slightly, I think. You may be able to see part of me. But I want the screen here to be kind of front and center so we can see exactly how fast it is. So that's what's gonna happen. And 120 frames per second, let's go. Okay, so that test is over with. Next thing I want to do is go into a low light scenario. So we're going to go back into the bedroom where it's super dark. I've got like night shades on the windows, and see if FaceTime, or not FaceTime, but see if Face ID is any difference performance-wise in a darker setting than it is in regular light. All right, guys, so the results are in, but before I go over the results, let me quickly kind of explain my methodology in terms of how I went about counting frames and how I'm converting that into seconds. So I started the frame counter not at the moment that I touched the screen with my finger, but at the moment I saw the screen turn on. So there was a little bit of a delay. I didn't count how long of a delay it was, but the frame counter started the moment the screen turned on, just slightly, because there is kind of like a gradient in terms of going from all black to full brightness. The frame counter stopped the moment I saw the unlock animation begin with that little lock at the top of the screen. So the frame counter counted frames from the time the screen started turning on to the time the animation started on the unlock. I didn't feel like it was really necessary to keep counting the frames after the animation started, because I feel at that point like if the animation has already started, that means the phone is unlocked and the animation is just needs to finish. So that being said, again, the frame counter started at the time the screen turned on and stopped at the time the animation or the unlock animation started. With that being said, for the daylight trials, trial 1, we had 47 frames, which is the equivalent of 0.392 seconds. I'm rounding all these to 3 decimal places. So if you're not familiar with like the differences between like recording in 120 frames per second or 30 frames per second or 60 frames per second, I'll quickly explain it to you, at least in this case. So 120 frames per second means within 1 second, the camera is recording 120 different single frames, which means for trial 1, since there is a delay of 47 frames between the time that the screen turned on till the time the phone was unlocked with Face ID, that's 47 out of 120 frames in that second, which comes out to 0.392 seconds. For trial 2, we had 45 frames, which is about 0.375 seconds. And for trial 3, we had 44 frames, which is 0.367 seconds. So averaging all of those numbers gives us an average of about 0.378 seconds for Face ID in daylight. All right, now let's go over the low light numbers. So for trial 1, we had a time span of 44 frames, which comes out to be 0.367 seconds. For trial 2, we had 42 frames, which comes out to be 0.350 seconds. And for trial 3, we had 73 frames, which comes out to be 0.608 seconds. So those 3 trials average 0.442 seconds. Now again, trial 3 is throwing that off a little bit, and I have a feeling that whatever happened on trial 3 had nothing to do with low light, being in the low light or whatever, because we're dealing with infrared. We're not dealing with how light things are, or how bright things are, if that makes sense. So trial 3 is throwing off the average a little bit, but for my initial impressions, the low light, it didn't really seem to change all that much between daylight and low light settings. All right, so the iPhone 11 Pro Max is out of the way. Now let's do the iPhone XR. Now this is actually my wife's phone, and just to show you guys that it is indeed the XR. See, there's only one camera in the back there. So we're going to switch to 120 frames per second again. So methodology and testing, setup, everything like that is going to be the same as it was for the iPhone 11 Pro Max. It's just now we have a different phone. Well, that was interesting. So let me share with you guys the results, the very surprising results in my opinion, of the iPhone XR. So for trial 1, again, we had 30 frames, which comes out to be exactly 0.250 seconds. For trial 2, we had 38 frames, which comes out to be 0.317 seconds. For trial 3, 36 frames, which is exactly 0.3 seconds. So on average, for the regular light trials, we had 0.289 seconds on average, so a little over a quarter of a second. For the low light trials, the first trial we had 33 frames, which is 0.275 seconds. Second trial was 37 frames, which is 0.308 seconds. And for trial 3, 36 frames, which again is 0.300 seconds. So on average, those came out to be, or the average of those 3 trials for low light came out to be 0.294 seconds. So again, we're talking about a difference of 0.005 seconds average between regular light and low light. So I don't really think that's enough to definitively say that there's a difference between regular light and low light in terms of the performance of the iPhone XR. It seems like the performance is pretty much the same. Here's the surprising thing, which you guys may have already picked up on if you're following the numbers closely so far. On average, the iPhone XR is 23.5% faster than the iPhone 11 Pro Max. At least the phones that my wife and I have. Throughout this testing process, I've tried to be as consistent as possible in terms of how I measure things, like starting the frame counter, the exact frame I see the screen start to turn on, and ending the frame counter at the exact frame I see the unlock mechanism start to animate at the top of the screen. I did that for the iPhone 11 Pro Max. I also did that for the iPhone XR. I also had the Face IDs programmed to my face rather than my wife, so my face is the same for both cameras. And the iPhone XR still came out to be 23.5% faster. The settings are also the same for both cameras. Both the iPhone 11 Pro Max and the iPhone XR had require attention for Face ID turned on. They also had attention awareness features turned on. So these results are pretty surprising to me, because I'm not sure if Apple has updated Face ID for the iPhone XRs with some sort of software update to make them go faster, or they're maybe introducing newer hardware in the current XRs. I'm not sure. But the XR was released about a year ago, which is substantially earlier than the iPhone 11. iPhone 11s have been released, yet the iPhone XRs are faster, at least in terms of Face ID, than the iPhone 11s are. Again, at least in terms of these results here in this video, this is not nearly enough to say definitively overall that the results are going to be the same, for every single iPhone XR versus iPhone 11 comparison. But interesting results, very surprising results in this video. Let me know what you guys think about this. I mean, is this, for those of you who may have access to both an iPhone 11 and iPhone 10, Can you confirm this is the case? Like, is it faster? Or is the iPhone XR performing faster? It may not be recognizable, I guess, in person, but when you're analyzing frame by frame, it's definitely a noticeable difference in terms of performance. Yeah, let me know in the comments below. What do you think? Also, did I miss anything? I mean, because I am human. In any scientific experiment, there's potential for human error involved. Let me know. Anyway, yeah, let me know your thoughts. Interesting video this one was. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please hit that like button. Subscribe for more. I'll see y'all next time.